I wasn't supposed to be at the diner that night. Jenny and I had plans to eat at home, something quiet after a long week of client meetings and endless revisions to a manufacturing proposal that was bleeding me dry. But she'd gotten called into the hospital. She's a nurse, the kind who actually gives a damn about her patients, and I didn't feel like cooking for one. So I drove to Eddie's Roadside, this greasy little place off Route 9 that's been around since the 70s. Vinyl booths, fluorescent lights that buzz like angry wasps, coffee that tastes like it was brewed during the Carter administration. The kind of place where you go when you don't want to think too hard about anything. I slid into a booth near the back, the one with the duct tape holding the seat together. The waitress, Darlene, according to her name tag, brought me coffee without asking and told me the special was meatloaf. I ordered it. Didn't matter what it tasted like. I was just filling time. That's when I heard his voice. My son, Travis. Loud enough that half the diner could probably hear him, which I'm sure was the point. He was in the booth directly behind mine, separated by one of those high vinyl dividers that's supposed to give you privacy but really just creates the illusion of it. I could hear every word, every laugh, every casual cruelty. I'm telling you, man, I'm the brains behind every project in that family. Travis's voice carried that particular blend of confidence and contempt that he'd perfected over the last few years. Dad? He just signs the checks, shows up, nods like he understands what's happening, and pretends he contributed something. Someone laughed. One of his friends, probably. Travis collected people like that, the kind who laughed at everything he said because they thought proximity to him meant something. Seriously? Another voice. Male. Young. Your old man doesn't do anything. He's slow, Travis said. The word hit me like a fist. I mean, he was probably good at what he did 20 years ago, but now, he can barely keep up with basic email, every idea we've implemented in the last 5 years. That was me, but he takes credit because his name's on the building. My coffee had gone cold in my hand. I hadn't moved, hadn't breathed. Travis is being modest. That was Kimberly, my daughter-in-law. Her voice had that bright, sharp quality that always reminded me of breaking glass. His father genuinely needs supervision at this point. We've talked about it. The man still uses paper files for everything. Paper, in 2024. More laughter. So what are you going to do? The friend asked. Just wait for him to retire? We're working on it, Travis said. I could hear the smile in his voice. There's a process, but we're positioning ourselves. Kimberly's already got relationships with half the client base. They trust her more than they trust him anyway. And I've been documenting every project, every decision, making sure everyone knows who actually does the work. That's smart, Kimberly added, because honestly, if we left it up to him, the whole thing would collapse in a year. He got lucky. Right place, right time, knew the right people. But luck runs out. The waitress appeared with my meatloaf. I must have looked normal enough because she didn't say anything, just set the plate down and walked away. I stared at it. The gravy was congealing into a brown skin. The real issue, Travis continued, is that he's stubborn. He doesn't see that he's become a liability, so we're going to have to maneuver him into stepping back. For his own good, really. How do you maneuver someone like that? The friend asked. Carefully, Kimberly said. You document everything, every mistake, every time he slows down a project, every client complaint. You build a case. And then, when the time's right, you present it to him as though you're doing him a favor. Dad, we think you've earned a rest. Let us take over. You've worked so hard. That kind of thing. He'll buy that? He will, Travis said, because he's not as sharp as he used to be. He doesn't see the whole picture anymore. Hell, half the time I don't think he even remembers what projects we're working on. I'd heard enough, more than enough, but I couldn't move. It was like being in a car accident in slow motion. You know what's happening, you know you should do something, but your body won't cooperate. The property too, Kimberly said, quieter now. The house, the workshop, all of it's in his name, but we're going to need access to that eventually, for expansion. He's sitting on prime real estate and using it to store junk from the 80s. Jesus, the friend said, you guys have really thought this through. We've had to, Travis replied. You don't get ahead in this world by being passive. You see an opportunity, you take it, even if it's your own father. Especially if it's your own father, I thought. That's what he meant. That's what he'd always meant. I shifted in my seat, trying to get a look at them through the gap between the booth dividers. Bad idea. My elbow knocked against the table, and my coffee cup rattled against the saucer. Not loud, but loud enough. The conversation behind me stopped. Did you hear something? Kimberly asked. Probably just another customer, Travis said, but his voice had changed, tighter, more alert. I should have gotten up right then, walked out. But I stayed frozen, staring at my untouched meatloaf like it was the most fascinating thing I'd ever seen. "Hey," Travis's voice again, louder. "Is someone in the booth behind us?" I heard movement, the scrape of vinyl, footsteps. And then Travis was standing at the end of my booth, staring down at me with an expression that cycled through surprise, recognition, and something that might have been fear before landing on forced casual confidence. "Dad," he said, "what are you doing here?" I looked up at him. My son, 32 years old, wearing a button-down shirt that probably cost more than my entire outfit, hair styled in that deliberately messy way that takes 20 minutes to achieve. Kimberly appeared beside him, her smile bright and empty. "Eating dinner," I said. My voice sounded normal. I was surprised by that. "We didn't see you come in." Kimberly's eyes were doing rapid calculations behind that smile. "Are you here alone?" "Jenny had to work." "Oh." Travis glanced back at his booth, then at me. "How long have you been here?" "Long enough," I said. His face went pale. Just for a second, just enough that I knew he understood. Then the mask came back, that easy confidence he wore like armor. "Look, Dad, if you heard anything—" "I heard everything," I said quietly. Every word. The diner felt very quiet suddenly. Or maybe it was just that all I could hear was my own pulse in my ears, steady and cold. Kimberly recovered first. She always did. "David, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "There hasn't." I stood up, left 2 20s on the table, more than enough for the meal I hadn't touched, and walked past them. Travis didn't try to stop me, neither did Kimberly. They just stood there, frozen, while I walked out into the parking lot. The night air was cold. October in New Hampshire does that. Daytime warm enough to fool you, nighttime cold enough to remind you winter's coming. I sat in my truck for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. I'd known things were bad. You don't live with someone for 32 years without picking up on the signs. The subtle dismissiveness, the way Travis had started talking over me in meetings, how Kimberly had slowly inserted herself into every aspect of the business, always with a smile, always with an excuse for why she needed to be involved. But hearing it like that, hearing them laugh about it, plan it. That night, I learned just how stupid my son thought I was and how wrong he was about that. I started the truck and drove home. Jenny was already back, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and her phone. She looked up when I came in. "How was Eddie's?" she asked. "Enlightening," I said. She must have heard something in my voice because she set the phone down and gave me her full attention. "What happened?" So I told her. Everything. Every word I could remember. By the time I finished, her tea had gone cold and her expression had gone from concerned to furious. "That little bastard," she said quietly. Jenny doesn't swear often. When she does, it means something. They've been planning this. For how long? Based on what I heard, at least a year, maybe longer. We need to talk to a lawyer. "We will," I said. "But first, I need to think." I went down to my workshop in the basement, the one Kimberly had called a junk storage space. I turned on the lights and looked around at 30 years of work. Prototypes, plans, files, equipment. Everything I'd built, everything I'd created, laid out in careful organization that only looked like chaos if you didn't understand the system. I sat down at my workbench and opened my laptop. The business server was accessible from here. I'd set it up that way years ago, back when I'd trusted my son enough to give him administrative access to almost everything. Back when I thought teaching him the business meant sharing everything freely. I spent 3 hours going through files, project histories, email chains, document metadata, client communications, the digital fingerprints of every piece of work that had gone through our company in the last 5 years. What I found shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Not because it was shocking, I'd already heard the truth from Travis's own mouth, but because it was so thorough, so calculated. He'd been systematically repositioning himself as the primary contact for clients, copying himself on every important email, attaching his name to documents I'd created, making sure that anyone who looked at the records would see Travis Freeman as the architect and David Freeman as the old man who occasionally signed things. But here's the thing about digital files. They remember. Every document has metadata, creation dates, edit histories, author information, none of which Travis had bothered to scrub because he thought I was too slow, too stupid, too behind the times to ever check. I pulled up a spreadsheet and started listing everything: projects, files, dates, authorship. It took until 2 in the morning, but when I finished, I had a clear picture. Every major innovation, every significant contract, every piece of intellectual property that had kept our company profitable for the last decade had come from me. Travis had contributed ideas, sure, minor adjustments, surface-level improvements, but the core work, the actual brains behind every project he'd bragged about, that was mine. I saved the spreadsheet to a secure folder, backed it up to 3 separate drives, and then I went upstairs to bed. Jenny was still awake, reading by the lamp on her side. "Did you find what you needed?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "I found exactly what I needed." "What are you going to do?" I thought about Travis's voice in the diner, the casual cruelty, the laughter, the absolute certainty that I was too weak, too old, too slow to fight back. "I don't know yet," I said, "but whatever it is, it's going to be thorough." The next morning, Travis called. I was expecting it. "Dad, about last night." "Not now," I said. "I'm busy." "We should talk. I think you misunderstood." "I understood perfectly. We'll talk later." I hung up. He called back twice. I let it go to voicemail both times. Around noon, I got an email from him. Subject line, "Need access to Q3 projection file." The message was brief, professional, careful. He needed access to a file he'd supposedly been working on but had accidentally deleted from his local drive. Could I restore it from the server backup? I stared at the email for a long time. This was it. The moment where I could let things go back to normal, pretend last night hadn't happened, maintain the comfortable fiction that we were a functional family working toward a common goal, or I could make a different choice. I opened the server management console and navigated to the file he'd requested. Q3 projections. I'd created it 6 weeks ago, spent a week on the analysis, formatted the whole thing myself. Travis had opened it once, added his name to the title page, and apparently considered that a contribution. I restored the file to his access folder, but I also did something else. I enabled detailed revision tracking, full audit logs, author attribution for every cell, every formula, every word, and I set the system to automatically generate a summary report showing exactly who had created, edited, and modified every piece of the document. Then I attached a note to the file. Restored as requested. System has automatically generated authorship logs for compliance purposes. Dad. I hit send. 2 hours later, Travis called again. This time, I answered. "What the hell is this?" His voice was tight. Angry. "What's what?" "This authorship log? This tracking report? Why is it showing?" "Showing that I created 98% of that document." I kept my voice level, calm. "Because I did create 98% of that document. The system just automatically logs that information. For compliance. You understand compliance, right?" Silence on the other end. "Dad, this isn't necessary." "You're right. It's not necessary. Unless someone was wondering who actually does the work around here, then it might be pretty useful." "You're being paranoid." "Am I? Today you're calling to complain about automated tracking logs. Seems like maybe you're the one who's paranoid, son." More silence. "We need to talk," he said finally. "We do," I agreed. "But not today. I'm busy. I'll let you know when I'm free." I hung up and turned off my phone. Jenny came home that evening with groceries and found me in the kitchen cooking dinner. Actual dinner, not frozen pizza or takeout. Chicken, vegetables, potatoes. The kind of meal that takes time and attention? "You're in a good mood," she observed. "I'm in a focused mood." "There's a difference?" "Yeah," I said. "A good mood is when things are going well. A focused mood is when you've decided things are going to go well, whether they want to or not." She set the groceries down and came over to look at what I was cooking. "What did you do?" "I gave Travis exactly what he asked for, with a few extras." "What kind of extras?" I told her about the revision tracking, the authorship logs, the careful documentation that proved, beyond any doubt, who had actually created the work Travis had been taking credit for. "That's good," she said. "But it's not enough, is it?" "No," I admitted. "It's not enough." "So what's next?" I thought about that while I finished cooking. What was next? Confrontation? Legal action? Years of bitter family warfare that would destroy what little relationship we had left? Or something else? Something more comprehensive? Something that would make absolutely certain Travis and Kimberly understood that underestimating me had been a mistake. "I need to know exactly how deep this goes," I said. "How many clients they've poisoned against me. How many people they've convinced that I'm useless. How much groundwork they've laid for this takeover they're planning." "That's going to take time." "I've got time." "And then?" I plated the food and brought it to the table. We sat down across from each other, the way we'd done for 27 years of marriage. Then, I said, I'm going to show them what happens when you underestimate someone who's been doing this since before you were born. Jenny picked up her fork, but she was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pride, maybe, or concern. Possibly both. Just promise me one thing, she said. What's that? Don't hold back. Whatever you're planning, whatever you're going to do, don't pull your punches because he's your son. I thought about Travis in the diner. His voice, his laughter, his casual dismissal of everything I'd built. I won't, I promised. Not this time. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Jenny, listening to her breathe, staring at the ceiling. My mind kept running through scenarios, possibilities, outcomes. Every path seemed to end in some version of destruction. The question was just whose destruction it would be. Around 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep and went back down to the workshop. I pulled out every file, every record, every piece of documentation I could find related to the business, client contracts, project proposals, financial statements, employee records, all of it. I spent the next 4 hours building a timeline, not just of Travis's attempts to take credit for my work. That was obvious now, but of everything else. Every client meeting where Kimberly had positioned herself as the primary contact. Every project where Travis had subtly excluded me from key decisions. Every small, calculated move they'd made to marginalize me in my own company. The pattern was clear. This hadn't been opportunistic. It had been systematic, deliberate. They'd been working toward this for at least 2 years, maybe longer, slowly positioning themselves, building relationships, creating a narrative where I was the obsolete founder and they were the innovative future. It was actually impressive, in a cold, ruthless kind of way. They'd played a long game, and they'd played it well. Their mistake was thinking I wouldn't notice, or that if I did notice, I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. By the time the sun came up, I had a plan. Not complete yet. There were too many variables, too many unknowns. But the skeleton of it was there, the foundation. Jenny found me at the workbench, surrounded by papers and open laptops. You look like hell, she said, handing me coffee. Feel like it too. But you found something. I found everything, I said. The question now is what to do with it. She sat down across from me, cradling her own coffee. What are your options? Legally? I could fire them both. They're employees. I own the company. I could terminate them today and lock them out. But that's not enough. They'd just go start their own firm, take clients with them, spin this as the old man finally losing it completely. They'd probably succeed, honestly. They've laid enough groundwork. So that's not the play. No, the play is to make sure everyone knows the truth. Not just about who did what work, but about who they are, what they're capable of, what they've been planning. Public humiliation. Among other things. Jenny sipped her coffee, thinking. That's dangerous. They'll fight back, hard. I know. And you're okay with that? With whatever comes next? I thought about my son standing in the diner, looking down at me with that moment of fear in his eyes before the mask came back. I thought about all the years I'd spent teaching him, training him, trusting him, believing that someday he'd take over and build something even better than what I'd created. Yeah, I said. I'm okay with it. My phone buzzed. Text message from Travis. Dad, we really need to talk. Please call me. I showed it to Jenny. You going to respond? Not yet, I said. Let him sweat. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like, and tell us below. Have you ever faced something like this? Travis called 6 more times over the next 3 days. I ignored all of them. On the 4th day, Kimberly showed up at the house. Jenny answered the door. I was in the kitchen, close enough to hear the conversation, but out of sight. Hi, Jenny. Is David home? He is. Can I talk to him? Just for a minute? I don't think that's a good idea right now. A pause. I could picture Kimberly's face, that practiced expression of concern she used when she wanted something. Look, I know there's been some tension. The thing at the diner, Travis is really upset about that. He never meant for David to hear those things. But he meant to say them, Jenny replied. Her voice was pleasant, polite, absolutely unyielding. It's complicated. We've all been under a lot of stress with the business, and sometimes people say things they don't mean. Kimberly, my husband spent 3 hours listening to you and Travis plan how to push him out of his own company. That doesn't sound like stress talking. That sounds like premeditated betrayal. Silence. I think you should leave now, Jenny said. Jenny, please? Leave, before I stop being polite about it. The door closed. Jenny came into the kitchen, shaking her head. She actually had the nerve to show up here, she said. What did you expect? They're desperate. They know I heard everything, and they can't control the situation anymore. Good. Let them be desperate. I went back to work. That's what I'd been doing for 3 days straight. Work. Real work. I took over every active project, every client relationship, every piece of the business that Travis and Kimberly had been managing. I sent emails directly to clients, reestablishing contact, making sure they knew I was still actively involved. I scheduled meetings. I reviewed contracts. I did everything that Travis had claimed I was too slow, too outdated, too incompetent to handle. The clients responded. Every single one of them. And you know what? Not one person seemed surprised or concerned that I was reaching out. No one questioned my involvement. No one asked where Travis was. Because despite everything my son had said, despite all his careful positioning, the clients still knew who actually ran the company. On the 5th day, I got an email from our accountant, Mitchell. Subject line: Irregularities in expense reports. I opened it with a sense of inevitability. Of course there were irregularities. Why wouldn't there be? Mitchell's email was detailed and professional, but the core message was simple. Travis and Kimberly had been filing inflated expense reports for months. Not huge amounts, nothing that would trigger immediate red flags, but consistent overcharges. Dinners that cost twice what they should, hotel rooms upgraded without approval, conference fees for conferences they'd never attended. It wasn't embezzlement exactly, it was more sophisticated than that. They were billing personal expenses as business costs, padding legitimate expenses, finding creative ways to extract money from the company without technically stealing it. I called Mitchell. How much total? I asked. Over the last year, about $43,000. Not enough to sink the company, but enough to show a pattern, enough to demonstrate intent. Why are you bringing this to me now? Because Kimberly tried to file an expense report yesterday for a business trip to Portland. But when I checked with the Portland clients, they said they'd never met with her. She filed hotel receipts, meal costs, even parking fees for a meeting that never happened. Did you approve it? No, I flagged it and contacted you. Good. Don't approve anything else without my direct authorization. And Mitchell? I need you to pull every expense report Travis and Kimberly have filed in the last 2 years. Complete audit. David, if I do that, they're going to know something's up. I'm counting on it. I hung up and sat back in my chair. So it wasn't just about taking credit for my work. They'd been actively stealing. Small amounts, carefully hidden, but theft nonetheless. This was getting better and better. That evening, Travis finally showed up in person. I was in the workshop when I heard his car in the driveway. Jenny must have let him in because a few minutes later I heard footsteps on the basement stairs. He appeared in the doorway, looking tired, stressed. Good. Dad. Travis. We need to talk. So talk. He came down the stairs and stood awkwardly in the middle of the workshop, looking around like he'd never seen it before. Maybe he hadn't, really. He'd always avoided this space, claimed it was too cluttered, too old-fashioned. Too much like me, probably. I'm sorry, he said. About what I said at the diner. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. How did you mean it? I was frustrated. The business has been challenging lately, and I was venting to friends. I shouldn't have said those things. Which part shouldn't you have said? The part where you called me slow? Or the part where you described your plan to manipulate me into retirement? He flinched. I was exaggerating, trying to sound more in control than I actually am. It's stupid male posturing, that's all. Male posturing, I repeated. That's your explanation. What do you want me to say, Dad? I want you to tell me the truth. How long have you been planning to push me out? I'm not... How long, Travis? He looked at the floor, at the ceiling, anywhere but at me. About 2 years. He said finally. But it's not what you think. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I thought it was time for the company to move in a new direction, and you weren't interested in that direction. What direction is that? Modern, efficient, competitive. Dad, you're brilliant at what you do, but the world's changed. The way we used to do business doesn't work anymore. We need to adapt. And by adapt, you mean cut me out. I mean transition, gradually shift responsibilities. Let you enjoy retirement while Kimberly and I handle the day-to-day operations. And then what? Eventually you transfer ownership to yourself, take over my company, my property, everything I built. It would still be yours on paper. Bullshit. He looked up sharply. I don't usually swear. Not at him anyway. This isn't about efficiency or modernization, I said. This is about you wanting credit. You want to be the founder, the creator, the genius, but you don't have the patience or skill to actually build something from scratch, so you're trying to steal mine. That's not fair. Fair? You've been filing fake expense reports. You've been systematically excluding me from client relationships and taking credit for my work. And you have the nerve to tell me I'm not being fair. His face went pale. What do you mean, fake expense reports? You know exactly what I mean. Portland trip that never happened, ring any bells? That was a mistake. A miscommunication. Was it a miscommunication when you billed the company for a $400 dinner at a restaurant that doesn't exist? Or when you claimed conference fees for an event you never attended? You've been going through my records. They're company records. My company. I have every right to review them. This is insane. You're acting paranoid. Get out. Dad. Get out of my workshop. Get out of my house. And tomorrow morning, you're going to come into the office and we're going to have a very serious conversation about your future with the company. You can't fire me. Watch me. He stood there for a long moment, fists clenched, jaw tight. I could see the calculations running behind his eyes. Fight or flight. Push back or retreat. He chose retreat. This isn't over, he said. No, I agreed. It's not. He left. I heard his car start, tires spitting gravel as he accelerated too fast down the driveway. Jenny appeared at the top of the stairs. You okay? Yeah. What happens now? Now, I said. I finished the audit. And then I show Travis exactly how much he's underestimated me. The audit took 3 days. Mitchell worked fast, pulling every record, every receipt, every expense claim Travis and Kimberly had filed in the last 2 years. The pattern was damning, not huge fraud, they were too smart for that, but consistent, deliberate theft. A few hundred here, a few hundred there. Always just under the threshold that would trigger automatic review. Total damage, $76,000. I documented everything, spreadsheets, copies of receipts, proof that meetings never happened, that expenses were inflated, that they'd been systematically stealing from the company for years. Then I did something else. I hired a private investigator. His name was Lawrence, and he came recommended by Mitchell's lawyer. Former cop, now running his own small agency. I met him at a coffee shop downtown, anonymous and public. What do you need? He asked. I need to know everywhere my son and daughter-in-law go, everyone they meet with, everything they're planning. I need to know if they're talking to competitors, if they're trying to steal clients, if they're setting up their own company. I need complete surveillance for the next 2 weeks. That's expensive. I don't care about the cost. I care about results. Legal surveillance only. I don't plant bugs. I don't hack phones. I'm not asking you to. Just follow them. Document where they go, who they see. Get photos if you can. I need evidence of whatever they are planning next. Lawrence studied me for a minute. This is personal. Very. Father and son? Does it matter? Only in terms of how far you want me to go. Some people want reconciliation, some want destruction. I need to know which one you are so I know what kind of information to prioritize. I thought about Travis in the diner. His voice, his certainty, his complete lack of remorse. Destruction, I said. Okay, I'll need a retainer. I wrote him a check. He pocketed it and stood up. I'll start today. You'll get daily reports. One more thing, I said. Don't let them know you're following them. I want everything they do, every conversation they have, every move they make. But I want them to think they're safe, that I'm just sitting at home, defeated, and broken. Understood. The first report came the next day. Travis and Kimberly had met with 3 people, a commercial real estate agent, a business lawyer, and one of our largest clients. The real estate agent showed them potential office spaces. The lawyer discussed the process of forming a new LLC, and the client, William Granger, owner of a manufacturing firm that accounted for 20% of our annual revenue, apparently listened while they pitched him on leaving our company and working with them instead. I read the report 3 times. This was it, the proof I needed. They weren't just planning to push me out. They were planning to leave, take clients with them, and start a competing business. I called my own lawyer, Patricia. She'd handled our corporate work for 15 years and knew the business inside and out. David, I heard you were having some family trouble. Word travels fast. It's a small industry. What do you need? I explained the situation. Everything from the diner conversation to the expense fraud to the surveillance reports. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You have a non-compete clause in Travis's employment contract? She asked. Yes, standard 2-year restriction. And Kimberly? Same. Then legally, they can't start a competing business in the same region for 2 years after leaving the company. If they try, you can sue for breach of contract and get an injunction. That's not enough. What do you mean? I mean, I don't just want to stop them. I want to make sure everyone knows what they tried to do. I want their reputations destroyed. I want every client, every colleague, every person in this industry to know that Travis and Kimberly Freeman are liars and thieves. Patricia sighed. David, I understand you're angry. I'm past angry. I'm cold. And I want them to pay for every lie they told, every dollar they stole, every plan they made to ruin me. What you're describing is a scorched earth strategy. It's legal, but it's going to be brutal for everyone involved. Good. Including you. This will damage you too. Your reputation, your relationships, your standing in the community. People will take sides. Some will side with them. Let them. I'd rather know who my real allies are. Another pause. Then, okay, if that's what you want, here's what we do. She laid out a strategy. Careful, legal, devastating. We'd wait until they made their move, actually registered the LLC, actually contacted clients about switching, and then we'd hit them with everything at once. Breach of contract lawsuit, cease and desist orders, public documentation of their fraud, notification to every client about the theft. How long until they move? Patricia asked. Based on the surveillance reports? Maybe 2 weeks. They're moving fast. Then we wait. Let them commit fully, and when they do, we destroy them. I thanked her and hung up. Jenny came into my office. You look grim. I feel grim. Second thoughts? No. Just realizing how far this has to go. Once we start this, there's no going back. Travis and Kimberly won't just lose the business. They'll lose everything. Their reputations, their relationships, their future in this industry. They made their choice, Jenny said. You heard them in that diner. They were going to do the same thing to you. I know, but he's still my son. He stopped being your son when he decided to betray you. Now he's just another person who tried to destroy what you built. She was right. I knew she was right. But something in my chest still ached when I thought about Travis as a child. The bright, curious boy who used to sit in this workshop and ask 1,000 questions. The teenager who'd been so proud when he'd fixed his first engine. The young man who'd sworn he wanted to follow in my footsteps. When had that changed? When had ambition turned into betrayal? I shook off the memories that Travis was gone, if he'd ever really existed at all. 2 weeks, I said. Then we end this. The surveillance reports kept coming. Travis and Kimberly were working fast, probably sensing that time was running out. They met with more clients, more lawyers, more potential investors. They registered the LLC under a name that was just different enough from our company to avoid trademark issues, but similar enough to cause confusion. They were building their new company on the bones of mine. On day 9, Lawrence called me directly instead of sending an email. You need to see this in person, he said. We met at the same coffee shop. He handed me a folder full of photos. Travis and Kimberly at a restaurant with 5 people I recognized immediately, our biggest clients. The kind of clients who could make or break a small manufacturing firm. They're planning a mass pitch, Lawrence said. From what I could overhear, they're going to approach all your major clients simultaneously with offers to move to their new company. Better rates, more personalized service, modern approaches. That's the pitch. When? Friday, 3 days from now. I stared at the photos. This was it? The final move? Once they pulled this off, even if I won a legal battle, the damage would be done. The clients would be gone, the company would be crippled, and Travis and Kimberly would have everything they wanted. Unless I moved first. I called Patricia. It's happening Friday, I said. They're going to contact all the major clients and try to steal them. Then we move Thursday. I'll file the lawsuit Wednesday night, serve them Thursday morning, and send notification to all clients by Thursday afternoon. Will that be enough? It'll be enough to stop them legally. The rest is up to you. What do you mean? I mean, you need to decide how public you want this to be. We can handle it quietly. Lawsuit, settlement, they go away. Or we can make it loud. Press releases, industry notifications, the works. But once you go loud, there's no controlling the narrative. It becomes a very public fight. I thought about Travis's voice in the diner. I'm the brains behind every project. Loud, I said. I want everyone to know. Okay, I'll draft the press release. But David, make sure this is really what you want, because after this, your relationship with your son is over, permanently. It was over the moment he decided to steal from me. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Travis was smart. Kimberly was smarter. They'd prepared for this, probably had contingency plans, backup strategies. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd assumed I was passive, defeated, too old and slow to fight back effectively. They were about to learn differently. Wednesday came. Patricia filed the lawsuit at 4:47 p.m., right before the courthouse closed. Breach of contract, theft, fraud, attempted corporate sabotage. We had documentation for everything, expense reports, surveillance photos, recorded client meetings that violated their employment agreements. It was airtight. Thursday morning, a process server showed up at Travis and Kimberly's house at 6 a.m. They were served with a lawsuit, cease and desist orders, and notification that all their access to company systems had been terminated. By 9 a.m., every major client had received an email from me explaining the situation. Professional, factual, devastating. I didn't editorialize, I didn't need to. I just laid out the facts. Travis and Kimberly had been stealing from the company, had violated their employment contracts by planning a competing business, and were now subject to legal action. By noon, my phone was ringing nonstop. Clients calling to express support, colleagues offering help, industry contacts wanting to know the full story, and at 12:47 p.m., Travis called. I answered. "You bastard," he said. His voice was raw, broken. "You absolute bastard." "Hello, Travis. You destroyed us. You destroyed everything. Our LLC, our clients, our reputation. It's all gone. Gone. You did that to yourselves. We were trying to build something. We were trying to make a future. You were trying to steal mine. You never would have given it to us willingly. You'd have hung on until you died, running the company into the ground because you're too stubborn to let go. Maybe, but it was mine to run into the ground, not yours to steal. I'm your son. You were my son." Silence. Then, "This isn't over." "Yes," I said quietly. "It is." I hung up. Jenny was standing in the doorway. "You okay?" "No, but I will be." That afternoon, things escalated. Travis and Kimberly showed up at the office. Security called to warn me they were in the parking lot, arguing with the guards about being let inside. "Don't let them in," I said. "If they try to force their way past you, call the police." 10 minutes later, the police arrived. Not because Travis had forced his way in, but because he'd started a scene in the parking lot, yelling, threatening, demanding to see me. I watched from my office window as officers talked him down, as Kimberly pulled him back toward their car. He looked unhinged, desperate, completely different from the confident man who'd sat in that diner booth and laughed about manipulating me. Good. The rest of the day was chaos. Lawyers calling lawyers, clients reaching out for reassurance. The local business community buzzing with gossip. By evening, the story had spread through every professional network in the state. David Freeman's son tried to steal his company. David Freeman fought back. David Freeman won. But I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt hollow, empty. Jenny found me in the workshop that night, sitting at my workbench, staring at nothing. "You did the right thing," she said. "Did I?" "He was stealing from you, planning to destroy you. You had no choice." "There's always a choice. I could have done this quietly, settled, let them go with some dignity intact. And then they'd have gone out and told everyone you were a vindictive old man who couldn't let go. They'd have built their narrative, and people would have believed it." "Maybe." She sat down next to me. "David, listen to me. That boy you're mourning, the one you think you failed, he's been gone for years. You didn't raise him to be this way. He chose it. And when he chose it, he gave up the right to your mercy. He's still my son. He's still the person who tried to ruin you. Both things can be true." I knew she was right, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. The next day, Friday, would have been the day Travis and Kimberly made their play. Instead, they were served with additional legal papers, depositions scheduled, discovery requests, the full weight of corporate litigation bearing down on them. Their lawyer called Patricia, asking for settlement negotiations. "How much do they want?" I asked when she told me. "They're not asking for money. They're asking for you to drop the lawsuit and keep this quiet." "In exchange for what?" "They leave peacefully. No competing business, no client contact, no further action. They just go away." I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "No." "David?" "No. They made this public when they decided to steal from me. They can live with the consequences. This will drag out. Depositions, court dates, months of litigation. I don't care. They need to understand that actions have consequences, that you can't just betray someone and then ask for mercy when you get caught." Patricia sighed. "Okay, I'll let them know." That weekend was quiet. Too quiet. I kept expecting Travis to show up, to call, to do something, but there was nothing, just silence. Until Monday morning, when I got a call from the police. "Mr. Freeman, this is Officer Chen. We need you to come down to the station." "What's this about?" "Your son filed a complaint. Says you've been harassing him, threatening him. We need to talk to you about it." I sat down slowly. "He filed a false police report?" "We don't know if it's false yet. That's why we need to talk." An hour later, I was sitting in a small interview room at the police station, explaining the entire situation to two detectives. They listened patiently, took notes, reviewed the evidence I'd brought. Copies of the lawsuit, the surveillance reports, the expense fraud documentation. When I finished, the older detective leaned back and rubbed his eyes. "So let me get this straight," he said. "Your son stole from you, tried to steal your business, and when you sued him, he came here and claimed you were the one harassing him." "That's correct." "And you have evidence of all this? The theft, the planning, everything?" "Complete documentation." "Do you have any witnesses to these alleged threats he claims you made?" "There were no threats. I haven't even spoken to him except for one phone call on Thursday." The younger detective looked at his partner. "This is going to be interesting." 3 hours later, I left the station. The detectives had determined the complaint was false, filed in retaliation for the lawsuit. They documented it as such and warned that if Travis filed any more false reports, he'd be charged with filing a false police report. But the damage was done. Travis had tried to turn me into the villain, and even though it hadn't worked, the fact that he'd tried showed me exactly how far he was willing to go. This wasn't just about money anymore. This wasn't about the business. This was personal, vicious, a fight to the finish. And I was just getting started. The investigation moved fast. Detective Mitchell was thorough, professional, and very good at his job. Within a week, he'd traced the fraudulent credit accounts back to Travis, IP addresses, computer access logs, even security footage from a bank where Travis had attempted to use one of the fake cards. "It's airtight," Mitchell told me during a meeting at the station. "He used your social security number, date of birth, mother's maiden name, everything, opened the accounts, maxed them out, and tried to hide the evidence by routing the statements to a P.O. box under a fake name." "How did you find it?" "He made one mistake. He used his real phone number for the bank's verification texts. That's all we needed to unravel everything." "So what happens now?" "We arrest him. Again. This time for identity theft, fraud, and grand larceny. He'll be arraigned, and given the evidence, there's basically no chance he doesn't get convicted. We're talking 5 to 15 years. 5 to 15 years. My son, in prison." Mitchell must have seen something in my expression because he leaned forward. "Mr. Freeman, I know this is difficult. He's your son. But what he did, this isn't a youthful mistake. This is systematic, premeditated fraud. He knew exactly what he was doing." "I know. If you are having second thoughts about pressing charges." "I'm not." "Okay, just wanted to make sure." 2 days later, police arrested Travis at his home. This time there were cameras. Local news had gotten wind of the story. A business owner's son arrested for identity theft, and they were all over it. I watched the footage on the evening news. Travis in handcuffs, Kimberly screaming at the officers, neighbors gathering to watch. It was humiliating, public, devastating. Good. The arraignment was quick. Travis pleaded not guilty, which was laughable given the evidence. His lawyer argued for bail, but the prosecutor pointed out that Travis had already demonstrated a pattern of criminal behavior and was a flight risk. The judge agreed. No bail. Travis would sit in county jail until trial. That night, I got a call from Kimberly. "You did this," she said. "No hello, no introduction, just accusation. You deliberately destroyed him. He destroyed himself. You could have handled this privately. You could have settled things quietly. But no, you had to make it public, had to humiliate him, had to make sure everyone knew. He committed crimes, multiple crimes. Did you expect me to cover for him? He's your son. He stopped being my son when he stole my identity. You're a monster, you know that? An absolute monster. What kind of father does this to his own child? What kind of child steals from his own father?" She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. "He's going to prison, David. Years in prison. And for what? Because he wanted to succeed? Because he tried to build something? He tried to steal something. There's a difference. I hope you're happy. I hope this was worth destroying your family over." "I didn't destroy the family. Travis did. I just made sure he faced consequences." She hung up. I stood there holding the phone, Jenny watching me from across the room. "That was brutal," she said quietly. She called me to blame me for her husband's crimes. What was I supposed to say? Maybe something less cold. "I've been cold for weeks now. You've said so yourself. Why does it bother you suddenly?" "Because you're starting to sound like you enjoy this, like hurting them gives you pleasure. It doesn't give me pleasure, but it doesn't hurt anymore either. I'm just done feeling things about it. That's worse, she said. That's so much worse. Maybe she was right, but I couldn't bring myself to care. The trial date was set for 3 months out. In the meantime, the civil lawsuit moved forward. Depositions, discovery, negotiations. Travis's lawyer tried repeatedly to settle, but I refused every offer. I wanted this to go to trial. I wanted a jury to hear everything. I wanted a public judgment that Travis Freeman was a thief and a fraud. Patricia warned me this was risky. Trials are unpredictable. Juries are human. Even with overwhelming evidence, things can go wrong. I didn't care. I wanted everyone to know the truth. The months after the trial were strange, quiet. The business continued. Clients stayed loyal. Revenue actually increased. Apparently, decisiveness and strength were attractive qualities in a contractor. People respected that I'd fought back instead of rolling over. But something felt wrong, off, like I was moving through a world that wasn't quite real anymore. Jenny noticed. She always noticed. "You're not sleeping," she said one morning over coffee. "I sleep fine." "You're down in the workshop until 3, 4 in the morning. That's not sleeping fine." "I'm working." "On what? We're not behind on any projects. There's nothing urgent happening. You're just hiding down there." She wasn't wrong. The workshop had become a refuge, a place where I didn't have to think about Travis, about the trials, about what I'd done. "I'm not hiding," I said. "I'm just processing." "It's been 3 months since the sentencing. How much more processing do you need?" "I don't know." She set down her coffee mug and looked at me directly. "Do you regret it?" "No." "Do you wish you'd done anything differently?" I thought about that. Did I wish I'd settled quietly? Let Travis go with some dignity intact? Taken the high road instead of the scorched earth approach? "No," I said. "I did what I had to do." Had to do, or wanted to do? What's the difference? One is necessity. The other is choice. You chose this path, David. You chose to destroy him. He chose to betray me first. And you chose how to respond. You could have responded with minimal force, just enough to protect yourself. Instead, you used maximum force. Nuclear option, complete annihilation. You think I was wrong. I think you won the battle, but you're losing the war. What war? The one for your own soul. You've become someone I don't recognize, cold, calculating, merciless. That's not the man I married. The man you married would have let Travis walk all over him. No, the man I married would have protected himself without losing his humanity in the process. She left for work after that. I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at my cooling coffee, wondering if she was right. Had I lost my humanity? Or had I just discovered it was never as strong as I thought? Around mid-morning, I got an unexpected call. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "David Freeman?" "Speaking." "This is Father Michael from St. Catherine's. I'm calling about your son, Travis." My stomach dropped. "What about him?" "He's asked me to contact you. He wants to know if you'd be willing to visit him. To talk?" "No." "Mr. Freeman, I understand there's been a serious breach of trust. That's putting it mildly. Nevertheless, Travis is struggling. Prison is difficult for anyone, but for someone with no prior criminal history, it's particularly challenging. He's trying to come to terms with what he's done, and he feels he can't move forward without speaking to you. He should have thought about that before committing identity theft. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm just asking if you'd be willing to hear him out. Sometimes that's all someone needs, to be heard." He was heard, by 2 different juries. They both found him guilty. I'm talking about being heard as a human being, not as a defendant. There's a difference. I thought about hanging up, but something stopped me. Curiosity, maybe. Or some last shred of, what? Compassion? Doubt? What does he want to say? I think that's something he needs to tell you himself. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. The prison visiting hours are, I said I'll think about it. I didn't say I'd do it. I hung up and stared at the phone. Travis wanted to talk. After everything, the trials, the sentencing, the complete destruction of his life, he wanted to talk. What could he possibly have to say that would matter at this point? I spent the next few days thinking about it, discussing it with Jenny, discussing it with Patricia, getting opinions from people I trusted. Jenny thought I should go. Not for him, for you, so you can have closure. Patricia thought I shouldn't. It's a trap. He'll try to manipulate you, make you feel guilty, maybe even try to extract some kind of concession. In the end, I decided to go. Not because I wanted to forgive Travis. Not because I thought it would change anything, but because I needed to see him. To understand if there was anything left of the son I'd raised, or if that person was completely gone. The prison was a low-security federal facility about 90 miles away. I drove there on a Thursday morning, the sky gray and threatening rain. The building was exactly what you'd expect. Concrete, wire, guard towers, oppressive. I went through security, metal detectors, searches, questions. Finally, they led me to a visiting room, a large space with tables bolted to the floor, guards watching from the corners. Travis was already there when I arrived. He'd lost weight. His orange jumpsuit hung loose on his frame. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 4 months. "Hi, Dad," he said as I sat down. "Hello, Travis." We sat in silence for a moment. I could see him struggling to figure out what to say, where to start. "Thank you for coming," he said finally. The priest was persuasive. "Father Michael, he's been helpful, talking to him, trying to understand how I got here. And have you? Understood?" "I think so. I was arrogant, entitled. I thought I deserved things I hadn't earned. And when I couldn't get them legitimately, I took them illegally. That's a start. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much. I know it doesn't fix anything. But I am sorry. For everything. The stealing, the lying, the betrayal. All of it. Why tell me this now? You had plenty of opportunities before." "Because before, I was still trying to justify it. To make it your fault somehow. But sitting here, day after day, I've realized there's no justification. I was wrong. Completely. And I need you to know that I understand that now." I studied his face, looking for deception, manipulation, the old Travis trying to work an angle. I didn't see it. He just looked broken. "Okay," I said. "You understand. You're sorry. What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to help me. I needed you to know that I get it. I understand what I did to you, and I'm sorry." "That's it? That's why you asked me to come here?" "That's it." We sat in silence. Around us, other inmates talked with their visitors. Families, lovers, friends, people who still had connections to the outside world. Travis had me. And based on the look in his eyes, he knew exactly how tenuous that connection was. "How are you managing in here?" I asked. "I'm surviving. That's about all I can say. It's hard, Dad. Really hard. I'm not built for this. The noise, the violence, the constant fear. I don't sleep. I barely eat. I just exist. You'll adapt. Will I? Or will I just break completely? That's up to you. I used to think I was strong, tough, capable of handling anything. Turns out I'm none of those things. I'm weak, scared, and completely unprepared for the consequences of my actions. Then maybe you'll learn something." "Is that what you want? For me to learn, or for me to suffer?" I thought about that, honestly thought about it. "Both," I said finally. "I want you to learn by suffering. I want the lesson to be so painful, so permanent, that you never forget it." "Mission accomplished." "We'll see. 8 years is a long time. You might surprise yourself. Or I might not survive it. Don't be dramatic. You'll survive. You're too stubborn not to." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I got that from you." "Maybe." The guard announced 5 minutes remaining. Travis leaned forward. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "What? Do you hate me?" I considered the question. Did I hate him, honestly? "No," I said. "I don't hate you, but I don't love you either. You're just someone I used to know, someone who hurt me very badly, and now you're facing the consequences of that. So there's nothing left, no relationship, no connection, not one that matters." He nodded slowly. "I understand. Thank you for being honest." "Time's up," the guard called. I stood up. Travis stayed seated, looking up at me with those hollow eyes. "Goodbye, Travis." "Goodbye, Dad." I walked out. Didn't look back. Got in my truck and drove away from the prison, from my son, from what was left of our relationship. Jenny was right. I'd won the battle but lost the war. When I got home, Jenny was in the kitchen making dinner. "How did it go?" she asked. "He apologized." "And?" "And nothing. He apologized. I listened. It didn't change anything." "Did you expect it to?" "No." She set down the knife she was using and turned to face me. "David, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Was it worth it? Everything you did? The lawsuits, the prosecutions, the complete destruction of his life. Was it worth it? I don't know yet. When will you know? Maybe never. She came over and took my hands. I love you. You know that, right? But I'm worried about you. This thing with Travis, it's eating you alive. Even though you won. Even though he's in prison and you're vindicated, it's still eating you alive. What do you want me to do? I want you to find a way to move on. Really move on. Not just pretend everything's fine while you hide in the workshop every night, but actually heal. I don't know how to do that. Neither do I, but I think we need to figure it out together. Because right now, you're winning every battle and losing yourself in the process. I pulled her into a hug. She felt small and warm and real. The only solid thing in a world that had become increasingly unmoored. I'll try, I said. That's all I ask. That night, I went down to the workshop, but instead of reviewing evidence files or obsessing over the past, I actually worked. Fixed a client's prototype, designed a new component, did the work I'd built my entire career on. It felt good, normal, right. Maybe Jenny was onto something. Maybe the only way forward was to stop looking back, to stop obsessing over Travis and what he'd done and what I'd done in response. Maybe I needed to just live. But even as I worked, even as I tried to focus on the present, a part of my mind kept circling back. To Travis in that prison, to the look in his eyes, to the weight of what I'd done. I'd destroyed my own son. Methodically, thoroughly, legally, but destroyed nonetheless. And I still didn't know if that made me strong or monstrous. Maybe both, maybe it didn't matter. The weeks passed, life continued, the business thrived, clients were happy, money came in. Everything that should have made me feel successful did, technically, make me feel successful. But underneath it all was a hollow space, a void where something used to be. I'd won everything and lost the only thing that really mattered. Not Travis. I didn't miss Travis. The relationship we'd had was built on lies anyway. But I'd lost something else, some sense of myself, some fundamental understanding of who I was and what I stood for. The man who started this journey wouldn't have recognized the man who finished it, and I wasn't sure that was a good thing. Jenny continued to worry. I could see it in the way she looked at me, the careful way she spoke, the gentle checking in that never felt quite natural. Have you thought about talking to someone? She asked one evening. A therapist, someone professional. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're functional. There's a difference. What would a therapist tell me that I don't already know? That I overreacted? That I was too harsh? That I should have shown more mercy? Maybe. Or maybe they'd help you understand why you reacted the way you did. Help you process it so it stops eating at you. It's not eating at me? David, you haven't slept properly in months. You spend every night in the workshop. You barely talk to your friends. You're just going through the motions of living. That's not fine. I need time. You've had time. What you need is help. I'll think about it. But I didn't think about it. I pushed it aside, like I pushed aside everything else that was uncomfortable or difficult. Focus on work. Focus on business. Focus on anything except the growing emptiness inside. It couldn't last forever, but I was going to try anyway.